Welcome to the council meeting of, God, I can't remember what date it is. November 19th? 18th. Wow, we're going to change things really well. Thank you very much, everyone. And I ask you all to rise for O Canada. Thank you for Tennille Towns for doing our national anthem. Thank you, and our staff for doing the video. The land acknowledgement. The city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver, Cree, Dene, and Métis people as the original caretakers of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island and acknowledge these lands have been home to diverse and sovereign First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. I have a proclamation for National Addictions Awareness Week, November 24th to 30th, 2024. Whereas National Addictions Awareness Week is recognized across Canada as an opportunity to raise awareness of the impacts of substance abuse and addiction, while highlighting supports available to our community. And whereas in the city of Grande Prairie, we recognize that addiction affects individuals and families across all walks of life. And for forging meaningful connections is key to supporting well-being and resilience. And whereas we acknowledge that addiction has significant health and societal impacts, but with strong community connections and appropriate supports, healing and change are possible. And whereas the city of Grande Prairie understands that by working together and fostering connections among individuals, families, and service providers, we can reduce stigma, promote healing, and support those affected by addiction. Now, therefore, I, Deputy Mayor Mike O'Connor of the City of Grande Prairie, do hereby proclaim November 24th to 30th as National Addictions Awareness Week in the City of Grande Prairie. So I have some events for the following week. Tuesday, November 25th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. and Friday, November 29th, from 2 to 3 p.m., North Reach Society is offering free naloxone training at the library in the Rotary Training Room. Registration is available on the Grande Prairie Public Library's website. Wednesday, November 27th, from 7 to 8:15 p.m. at Design Works Arena, there will be a free community skate for National Addictions Awareness Week with a variety of special guests, including some Grande Prairie Junior Storm players, first responders, Youth Advisory Council members, and a variety of community partners that will be providing information and mental health and addiction resources available in the community. And Wednesday, November 27th, from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 a.m., there will be a National Addictions Awareness Week mocktail event for students and staff at Northwest Polytech in the concourse area. This event is being hosted by Recovery Alberta, Northwest Peace, FASD Network, and the 1414 Food Company. Thank you. And now we'll move on to an adoption of the agenda. Oh, 5.1, sorry. Councillor Brussy.
Great, thank you, Chair O'Connor. I'd move the council adopt the minutes of the City Council meeting held November 4th as presented.
That motion is in order. Call a question.
Mayor Clayton in favor. Councillor Blackmore in favor.
Councillor O'Toole is also in favor.
Thank you. And that carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. And then we'll go to adoption of the agenda. And who will that be? Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor O'Connor. I move that council adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. That's in order. Call a question.
Mayor Clayton in favor. Councillor Blackmore in favor.
And once again, I vote in favor as well.
And that carries unanimously. And now we'll move on. There are no delegations, and we'll go to reports. Under 9 committee reports, public and protective services. And that should be Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor O'Connor. I move that council adopt the minutes of the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held November 12th as presented.
Go ahead, call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor. Councillor Blackmore in favor.
O'Toole in favor.
And that's carried unanimously. And we will now, do you have meeting highlights, Councillor Bosch?
I sure do. Thank you. Enforcement Services, vehicle for hire fall inspections were completed. And they had 100 vehicles inspected, 73 that passed inspection. The Mobile Outreach Administration participated in a blanket exercise facilitated by Northwest Polytechnic. So that's great. Patrols through Enforcement Services were done at Halloween for the Halloween Spooktacular event in the city center. And administration successfully delivered 9 advanced courses, including the National Safe Swim Recovery Program. And as a result, 15 candidates are working towards becoming our new lifeguards here in Grande Prairie. So that's great to hear. Peace Wapiti Speed Skating welcomes speed skaters from Western Canada to compete November 23rd and 24th. And the Grande Prairie Museum hosted a Remembrance Day lecture on November 6th of the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force. The ASAA football provincials will take place November 23rd and 24th as well. And the Legion, as well as the City of Grande Prairie, hosted the Remembrance Day ceremony at Bonnet's and then also at the Cenotaph. Peace Region Girls Choir concert is November 17th. Tennille Towns was last night, or no, tomorrow, Monday. And the Tinseltown Market is November 22nd to 24th. There will be a free family skate that will take place on November 27th with the Grande Prairie Storm in recognition of National Addictions Awareness Week. And you probably said that already, but we'll say it again. The fire department, the 2024 Fire Smart Vegetation Management Project has been completed. 8.92 hectares were dealt with in the South Bear Creek corridor. And the Regional Fire Training Center was officially unveiled last week. Well, 2 weeks ago now. in partnership between the city, county, and MD. And then we also had a report from Mobile Outreach on their statistics and the new food security backbone organization that the city and another organization in the city is going to collaborate in for the good of everyone for food security. That's everything, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bosch. And we'll now go to item 9.2 and Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. I would like to move over the adoption of the report, Administration and Financial Report as presented.
On November 12th, correct?
Thank you.
Call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
O'Toole in favor.
Gladys, Councillor Blackmore?
Councillor Blackmore has jumped off.
And Councillor O'Connor in favor. Okay, carried unanimously. Well, with the correction, she did get in. And
All right.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, point of privilege, Mr. Chair. I'm going to declare a conflict of interest for this next item. I'm part of a partnership that's got an offer on one of these buildings, so I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to be part of this conversation.
Thank you for declaring that conflict. Wait for a second. Okay, Councillor Burke.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I would like to move Council approve the following 3 items. Those properties subject to the 2023 tax recovery notification as per the attached list be offered for sale by public auction. 2, that the auction be held in the first floor north conference room at City Hall on Friday, March 14th, 2025 at 9 a.m. And 3, that the reserve bids for the 2023 tax recovery sale be set as per the attached Appendix D. And just speaking to this is an annual exercise of those that haven't paid their property taxes. The city has the power to put those properties for sale in order to recover those back taxes. My annual question to administration is how many have we had in the past? And from what I understand, it's been a good 5, 6, 7 years since we've even had one. So typically what will happen is a mortgage company or broker or bank will step forward and pay those back taxes before the auction.
Yes, just for the cameras, Councillor Berg was not on camera for that, so if we could have someone correct that. Councillor Bosch.
I'm good now. Councillor Berg said, answered the question I was going to ask.
Okay, thank you. So are there any other questions?
Call the question.
Call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
O'Toole in favor.
Councillor Blackmore?
As I said, she's not online.
Okay, thank you. And that's carried. Sorry. Okay, that's carried 7-2. 7-0, sorry.
All right, so moving on. Item number 2 is the 2024 Q3 financial report, and I'd like to move council receive the unaudited financial statements and supporting information for the period ending September 30th, 2024 for information. And briefly speaking to this, it looks like we are headed for a bit of a budget surplus this year.
Okay, wonderful. Any questions? Seeing none, call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor O'Toole in favor.
That's carried 8-0. Thank you very much.
And item number 3, amendments to policy 351, the tangible capital assets. I would like to move council approve amendments to policy 351, tangible capital assets as presented. And just speaking to this, it was first introduced in 2012, later revived in 2020. And what this does is it makes the city transparent and compliant for management practices of the city's tangible capital assets. What it does, it enhances economic efficiencies, leading to long-term cost savings and utilization.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor O'Toole in favor.
And you have one more.
Thank you, Chair.
It's 8-0, by the way.
Okay, and I will bunch these together if that's all right. I would move Council approve Policy 360, the corporate asset management, while moving the Council rescind Policy 354, asset management. And speaking to this, again, that was last updated in 2017. As we move forward, this aims to ensure assets are strategically planned, maintained for sustainability and viability.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor O'Toole in favor.
Councillor Berg in favor.
Councillor O'Connor in favor.
Councillor Platt in favor.
Oh, there it is. Little delay on the voting. Okay, it's 8-0. Thank you very much. And you have meeting highlights, Councillor Burke.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, we had a number of points of business, which we just addressed, but service area update from Chief Whiteway. Financial management, residents invited to watch the live stream of last week's budget, where, again, it is now concluded, and we put forward 2.28 tax increase for 2025. Taxation and assessment, administration is wrapping up new assessments for next year. Procurement and supply chain management. Competitive bids have been awarded for food and beverage service to 14 Food Co. in the Ernie Radburn Pavilion. It'll be nice to see somebody back in there, along with ice carving for January, and City Hall sign refurbishment to Prairie Signs. And perhaps most exciting, graphical and information technology services. November 20th is GIS Day for those who celebrate across North America. User desktops are being upgraded to the new Microsoft operating system. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Berg. That was very good. 9.3, operational services, will go to Councillor Palat. Take it away.
Thanks, Chair O'Connor. Actually, before I had that, it was in the queue just for a motion on the last one, if it's possible. I was hoping to just do some business before I got to Operational Services Committee. During budget last week, Mayor Clayton had made a comment that she would like us to bring reports forward that we thought were appropriate to the right standing committees. So after thinking about a lot of the conversation we had about our asset management conversation and some members in the community talking to me at the Festival of Trees, I'm thinking that it would be good for myself anyways to be more educated on our asset management in general, and maybe a conversation I'm hoping that we could all advance. So my motion would be to bring the report to the appropriate standing committee showing all expenses related to managing our assets in 2025 that include enterprise asset management, engineering and other reports assessing assets, planning studies on assets, and staff time managing our assets. I think that encompasses all the things I could think of that would go into managing our assets. I guess I'd look to admit if there's other things, but I think it's important that we start understanding all the steps that we take to managing our assets outside of that program. I think it's a good educational thing for our council to go through. And seeing this report likely probably won't come in until Q1 of next year or later, I'm assuming. I also think it's important that as we're thinking about an election next year, this could be great information for someone that's thinking about running to understand city operation better moving forward. So happy to repeat that for our clerk, or I can hand her the motion. But yeah, that would be the intent of my motion.
And just a quick question, Councillor Palat. Does that include our building assets?
So I guess my intent of my motion is much like asset management. I would assume that I would hope it would encompass all of our assets, whether that's streets, streetlights, buildings, anything that we consider an asset, I think would be good for us to start having a better understanding. I know for me, even though this is my second term on council, I don't feel I fully understand how we're managing our assets. So it might be a minute for ledge services to get that into our e-scribes.
Okay. This is when we do the
My apologies, I should have actually sent that into admin in advance so they could have had it prescribed.
That's under the last financial administration.
Chair O'Connor, I'm not sure if you see my hands up question.
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks. A question for the CAO. Although appropriate for Councillor Plott to make the motion now, my intent, just so other councillors were clear, was during standing committee that these conversations would happen. I think, and that the motions would come forward at the actual appropriate standing committee meeting. Happy to support this motion, but a question for administration in regards to the format. I'm not sure that the intent of Councillor Plott is that this comes to a standing committee, as it appears to be more of an education process. Would the preference be that this be a workshop, council committee of the whole? What's the CAO's preference in regards to this opportunity for training?
It might be a better question for Councillor Plott. We could accommodate either. If it was just some fact-based information that council was looking for, we'd bring that to the appropriate standing committee. If it was further explanation, I would suggest we look at some other format, but appropriate committee would be sufficient to work that out, unless there was some further direction here from Councillor Plott.
For me,
sorry, Councillor Plott, and so on that, Councillor Plott, I think it's more important that all of council be educated on your information than just the appropriate standing committee. So that's why my question to the CAO. I would suggest, Councillor Plott, that it's a CCW or a training opportunity.
Okay. I'm definitely fine with that. I kind of was hoping that motion would leave it open for administration to find the best way to insert it into the conversation, but a council committee of the whole seems like a great fit. The reason I brought it up at this meeting is I'm not on the financial services meeting, and that's what budget and previous we got to make motions, but with this one, I'm not on that committee. I didn't know how to get that through, so I just thought this was the appropriate opportunity to do that now, but definitely would be fine with amending that to saying council committee of the whole as the appropriate standing committee, if that's what administration would prefer.
Okay. I'd recommend that be added, and we'll call the question once that's in the... Go ahead, Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Deputy Mayor O'Connor. No, and I think we're approving we just approved, I guess, a new policy on corporate asset management, so I think it's appropriate time to say, hey, how's this going to be implemented, what's it cost? But my question is to management, we're asking for specific information here. How gettable is the information that's being asked for here? Is this, we're creating a lot of work for administration to do, or?
As this is new, I don't have an assessment of how that will be. I will say, just from hearing that motion, some of it will be estimates. When we're looking at like asset management is baked into lots of people's jobs that isn't necessarily a specific job that we think about how we maintain and either dispose or buy assets by a lot of different people. So with that parameter that there's some will be known and some will be estimates, I think we can come back with some information that would at least be valuable as a starting point for council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, I don't see it anywhere in the...
Should be in yours.
There we go. Is the wording the way you would like it? Okay. Call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Blackmore in favor.
O'Toole is in favor.
And that carries 9-0. Thank you. And now we will go back to operational services, and that's Councillor Plott.
Thank Thanks, Deputy Mayor O'Connor, and I appreciate the support on the last motion from my colleagues. I'd like to make a motion that Council adopt the minutes of the Operational Services Committee meeting held November 12th as presented.
That motion is in order. Call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Blackmore in favor.
And O'Toole in favor.
Okay. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And your number 1 FCM grant.
Yeah, we had some item business come from our committee meeting. So I'd like to move that Council support an application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Local Leadership for Climate Adaptation call for proposals to complete a climate adaptation plan. And just to speak to this a little bit, at budget, we did allocate some funding that would have matching funding to it as well. This is a program that I think is something we need to do to move forward as an organization, and just will set us up better in the future.
Thank you. And any questions? Seeing none, call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Blackmore in favor.
O'Toole in favor.
And that carries unanimously. And we'll go on to your highlights, Councillor Blutt.
Yeah, thanks, Chair O'Connor. So we had the one business arising. Other than that, we just had a verbal update from Chief Glavin, our operating officer. So under engineering and transportation services, our traffic signal maintenance has begun through 5 intersections throughout the city. There will be limited disruptions to traffic, with the most end palace areas being scheduled in off-peak hours. Under transit services, continually good stories. Overall ridership is up 51% from last year. On-demand is up 48%, and youth is up 119%. It's definitely great seeing these buses drive by near capacity previous to last few years where that was not the case. Environment and parks, the fall cleanup is ongoing. Preparations for winter are underway. And administration has delivered 24 new neighborhood rinks to date. And that's my report.
Thanks very much. And now we'll move on to 9.4, investment and strategy. Councillor Bressy.
Great. Thank you, Chair O'Connor. I move the Council adopt the minutes of the Investment and Strategy Committee meeting held November 12th as presented.
That motion is in order. Call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Blackmore in favor.
Councillor O'Toole is in favor.
Okay, that carries 9-0. Thank you. And we'll move on to your first item.
Thank you. I'd move the Council approve Fibre Optics rebate program, allowing for up to 100% rebate on municipal fees for fibre alignment projects initiated between July 1st, 2024 and December 31st, 2025, and direct administration to proceed with the broadband analysis. Just speak to this, something that I know my colleagues have all heard about is issues with some properties, many properties in town getting high-speed internet to their place of business, which has a big impact on quality of life, but also has a huge impact on the ability of some of our residents and some of our businesses to do business. We've asked administration to do some work on seeing what we could do to enable industry to get more fiber to buildings. And one thing they heard was that municipal fees can be a barrier, and charging things like development permits and other fees to dig up roads, do whatever you need to do to get fiber in can be a barrier. So waiving the municipal costs on these could help get some projects done. But also they've heard that we just need a better inventory of what are the needs in the community so that private investment has the data it needs to make good decisions about where it's going to help our residents get better connection to internet. And so that broadband analysis would provide that information, not just for us, but also hopefully for industry to be able to give our residents better services. So I hope that Council will support this.
Okay. Before I do that, I would like to ask CAO Burke what the impact of that 100% rebate on fees, what does that look like?
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. Traditionally, we budget about $30,000 a year for this program as revenue. It is dependent on how much activity is in place from fiber companies installing in the city. So there is the potential for that to be a larger number if there was a significant project that came into town. But as this is up to 100%, if there was an anomaly in this, that we would come discuss that with council, whether we were willing to proceed with a really significant project. But this would cover off sort of our typical installation of fibre year by year is about 30,000 foregone revenue.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before I call a question? Call a question, please.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Blackford in favor.
O'Toole is in favor.
And that carries 9-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Item number 2.
thank you, Chair O'Connor. I'd actually prefer not to make these motions if the chair will permit. Councillor Bosch has agreed to make them.
Okay. Councillor Bosch.
This will leave some room for Councillor Bressy to chit-chat in between here. I move that council give first reading to bylaw C1480 being the elections bylaw.
Okay, that motion is in order. Call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Blackford in favor.
Councillor O'Toole is in favor.
Okay, that carried unanimously, and we'll move on to number 2.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw C1480.
Okay, any questions or discussion? Okay, Councillor Bressy, you'll pass? Okay.
Actually, sure. I'm just figuring out procedurally where it makes sense. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that would, if it passes, then we'd have to postpone this to the next meeting. But what the motion's going to be is that we direct administration to prepare amendments to this bylaw, which will prohibit taking photographs or videos of ballots for reasons other than assisting voters with visual disabilities. And just to speak to this, I think it's a really important part of our democracy is that we've got secret votes. And I think that if you allow people to take videos of their ballots or photos of their ballots, it opens the door to people either being coerced to vote in a certain way or being incentivized to vote in a certain way. So the Local Authorities Election Act does recognize that problem, and provincial legislation makes it so that people can't take pictures of their ballots. But I also know that a lot of people, they don't read the LAEA. It's a long, hard, complex piece of legislation, but there are people who do read our own bylaws. And for me, I think it would be good to have this provision not just in the LAEA, but also in our municipal bylaws, so it's easier for people to understand. There might also be an ability to have, if it's in our bylaw, there might be an ability to have a lesser penalty that we can levy to people if that's appropriate, if we have issues. So by asking administration to make amendments, I just think it would make our election bylaw better. I did, coming out of last committee where I raised this issue, administration did prepare some potential amendments that we could have made today, but just in conversation with administration here, that they like to get a little bit more legal advice on those amendments and just do a little bit more work on them prior to us doing something. So also speaking to administration, it's not a big issue if we put this back to the next council meeting to make these amendments. So I hope that council will support this motion.
Okay, any discussion? I think this motion is in order. So any discussion on this motion? Okay. Go ahead, CEO Burke.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor O'Connor. And just along those lines, that it definitely is administration's preference that when we're amending significant bylaws like this, that we don't amend them on the fly, and that we do take the proper time. That was some of the intent in bringing this bylaw early enough before the end of the year, so that we could have some of this time. So I can confirm that timing isn't an issue if we're able to consider this in a couple of weeks. And also, we just want to confirm that if we're exploring some options that are already that are in areas that the province has touched through legislation, we just want to make sure that we have the authority to add in clauses, particularly around the bylaw provisions. So we'll just seek that legal advice before we bring proposals back at the next council meeting, should this pass.
Okay, Mayor Clayton.
Sorry.
You're cutting. Just hang on for 1 second. You're cutting out terribly. Just hang on for 1 sec. Okay, try again. You're not coming.
About this
Would you be able to text me what you're trying to say, Jackie? It's not just coming through. And we lost her. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, Councillor Bressie, you had a comment? Okay. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. With any bylaw, I always ask this simple, basic question, and I suppose this is part of what you might be looking for in 2 weeks. But one, how do we police it? And two, how do we enforce the penalties? And what are those penalties? So to me, those are important questions as part of this bylaw that, should it move forward, that I think we need to address.
Councillor Thiessen?
Yeah, I don't mind. I had a similar question to Councillor Berg. I would like to come back in the queue, but it looked like Councillor Bressie had a response to Councillor Berg's question.
Okay. Councillor Bressie?
If I may.
Mayor O'Connor, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, Mayor Clayton.
Sorry, Councillor Bressie. You may have already addressed this, but I'm just wondering procedurally if this is the best plan. I'm wondering, Councillor Bressie, I think you mentioned tabling. Tabling makes more sense with me, and then directing administration. Bring back those items. I don't know if amending as on the ALMS plan, but maybe you've already cleaned this up.
Okay, Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Our wonderful administration's already helped me clean that up, and they're suggesting, if the chair will permit, a friendly amendment to this motion, just adding it to the end, and postpone vote on second reading to the December 2nd City Council meeting. And so I'd love to add that to the motion if the chair would permit.
The chair is in agreement. Go ahead, Mayor Clayton. You cut out. Okay.
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
And sorry, just speaking to Councillor Berg's concerns, I don't know the answer to those questions, and that's why I'm not trying to amend it today. That's why I'm suggesting we postpone and we let our wonderful administration go and do the research and make their recommendations about how we can best do that.
Thank you.
Okay. So if there's no further discussion, we'll call the question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Blackmore in favor.
O'Toole in favor.
You weren't in the queue, so anyway. Okay, thank you. Did you want to add something before we move on? And that was carried unanimously, by the way.
Yeah, I guess one of my concerns going forward, I don't mind tasking administration with work, but it's exactly what Councillor Berg requested. Like, how do we enforce this? Like, are we making our residents leave their phone at the check-in table so that they can't take a picture? What happens if something goes wrong with said voting? You know, if the province changes back to electronic voting machines and we have on-screen things, how are they supposed to at least see, like, if their vote was registered or recorded properly? The other one is for Josh Brown or Joe Brown or Murray Smith or whoever decides to take a picture of their ballot and post it on social media. I don't know if I want administration calling up Bylaw and chasing down somebody who posted something on Facebook because it hit their algorithm. One, I don't want to staff up to get into everybody's algorithm and see what's right or wrong. There's lots of things that happen in the course of our elections that we can't enforce. This is just one of those things where I just don't know if you can. Now, originally I thought, Councillor Bressie, that your motion would be about what we already have in our bylaw, which is candidates who are running for election can't show a picture of a ballot on their material or can't post a picture of a ballot on social media. But to go for everybody in our community. I mean, that's a tough thing to enforce. We were told it's already going to increase our elections by 100,000 to go to a hand count. And I guess my concern is if we have to have people policing, phone use around the poll stations, then that could increase our costs by double, maybe triple. And so I'm curious to see how it comes back to us, but I don't know if when it does, it's going to have enough meat for me to be able to support it. Well, that's just my comments.
So I think we'll wait for the December 2nd and we'll have that discussion at that time. I think that's fair. That was carried. So we'll go on to item 3. Go ahead.
Sorry. I would move that Council approve the terms of reference for the Grande Prairie Regional Competitiveness Invest Northwest Committee as outlined in Attachment 1. And just to speak to this, I know that's something we've been working very hard as a council, and along with the MD Council and the County Council, has been to be collaborative in how we attract investment to the region and to speak as one voice and to really demonstrate that anything that's good for the region is good for the city and is good for the county is good for the MD. And we've had some real success getting in front of C-suite executives and other folks who are making investment decisions in our region. But as we're having these successes, we think we can build on them by getting a little bit more formalized. And so that's what this committee is about. And I hope that council will approve forming it.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, call the question.
Councillor O'Toole in favor.
Resty in favor.
Mayor Clayton and Councillor Blackmore. How do you vote? Okay, that went 7-0. Thank you very much. And your highlights.
Great, thank you, Chair O'Connor. Not much business that we didn't already cover, but there was a verbal update from Interim Chief Tarrant, and a couple things I want to highlight from that is Growing the North registration is now open, so it's a great event, so please get yourselves registered for that. And also there's some interesting work that we've been doing along with NWP to host various events, and one of those was an event focused on the future of soil research in the Peace region. And I think it was just great to hear a highlight of research that happens at NWP, not just the education that happens there.
Okay. With that, thank you very much. And we'll move on to unfinished business. 10.1 Land Use Bylaw Amendment. Who is going to introduce this? Mr. Joe Johnson, please.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. This item was presented at the last council meeting and it went through public hearing, but failed to receive unanimous vote for having third reading. So the presentation was made at the last meeting and I can answer any questions council may have.
I have one. Just curious, 12.2 meters, I think it's under the, I don't have the list in front of me here. 12.2 meters is 40 feet. So if it's a regular house, that's a very small lot. I'm just wondering, where would you place the parking if you're 40 feet, you've got 4 foot on one side, and the house takes up the whole lot? How do you get the parking in there for the person at the back?
Sure. Through the chair, thank you. 12.2 meters is a 40-foot lot, which is actually one of the larger lots in new neighborhoods. But there's also a lot of older areas in town where a 40-foot lot would, where there are a lot of lots larger than that. There are various scenarios where there could be parking off of the front yard, front attached garage, or rear lane. So some lots, just by design, may not work. And if that's the case, then they would be refused. They would be required to meet all elements of the bylaw. and we don't want to exclude them entirely based on the possibility that they won't fit. It's just like any other development regulation. If it works, it works, and if it doesn't, then we'll refuse it.
Okay. And just curious, I don't know if there's been any thought for services. Most houses on a small lot like that, if there's no lane, they come in from the front street. So I'm just curious how we get services to the backyard to service the backyard suite.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, there certainly could be some servicing challenges. However, we would simply require that they meet Aquaterra's requirements as well as the safety code side of things. So it is my understanding, and I wouldn't necessarily vouch for it 100%, but I believe that they are able to tie in the services directly to the house and then from the house to the street. So it's not like they need to run a new set of services from the street.
Your mic. Okay, thank you, Chair. As I'd mentioned last time, I did have some concerns with the original proposal put forward, and administration addressed those concerns to my satisfaction. So this is something that I would like to move forward. We as a council feel that we need more places to live. Our vacancy rate is less than 1%. We put the call out, and administration's come forward with some solutions, and I think this is a positive solution, and it's just something that I'd like to see move forward.
And Councillor Thiessen?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair O'Connor. Just a question for administration. Let's say underneath this bylaw, let's say I purchased a house in one of our older neighborhoods, Avondale, say Highland Park, Hillside, and it had a small house with a large lot on it. Theoretically, could I purchase that, demo the house, build a bigger house, and then have another lot without, like in the back, without having to subdivide the lot or to declare it a duplex or a fourplex or whatever? Theoretically, could I build those two separate structures and not get dinged?
Through the chair, yes, you would be able to demolish the existing house on the lot, and then the house that you build on the lot would be required to conform with the development regulations of the governing land use district, after which then you could apply for the garage suite, which then would have its own separate set of regulations. Yes.
But not as stringent as a typical development, or would it? Like, what would be more expensive, I guess, getting all your permits to build a house or to build a granny suite?
Through the chair, off the top of my head, I believe the permits, at least for the development permit side of things, it would be more expensive for the garage suite, because the garage suite is being proposed as a discretionary use, whereas a single detached dwelling is a permitted use. And the discretionary use, following a different process, requires more staff time and resources, so there is a higher development permit fee.
Okay. Yeah, and just kind of for that reason, for me, it's kind of tipped the scales in my regard. I feel like this could be a creative way to subdivide properties into smaller lots without actually having to divide That's kind of what I was getting at, but yeah, it looks like Joe Johnson wants to answer.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Through the chair, I forgot to answer that piece of the question. There would be no opportunity for subdivision of the lot. It would have to remain as a single lot, a single detached dwelling with a garden suite in the backyard with no subdivision options.
Perfect. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. This is like subdividing without subdividing. So essentially what we're doing is the potential to fragment larger lots. Now, I know a lot of people, they look at their backyard and they say, whoa, that's a selling feature for me. One, I got big space and I got lots of privacy. But the second their neighbor purchases a home there and then develops a 2-story garden suite, not too much smaller than the house, and then starts renting it out as a principal residence for some member of the community to rent out, we could actually see this start to go across all of our older, more character neighborhoods such as Avondale, VLA, Hillside, Highland Park, Swanhaven. We could see these big yards chopped up, and the second that they're chopped up into 2, one for a granny suite and one for a principal residence, there's no going back unless you demo. So, and that comes at the cost of the next buyer, and it also increases the cost of that property. So it may be a harder sell for some people. So for those reasons, I'm trying to protect our older neighborhoods, which, have typically older trees, bigger yards, smaller houses, and better properties. I think there's better ways and more creative ways that we can go about taking care of our vacancy issues and our vacancy rate without, prematurely and kind of in a weird way, subdividing a lot without having to pay the costs. So for me, I can't support this. I didn't support it in the beginning, and here we are. I'm not supporting it in the end either. Thank you.
Okay. That is covered under 46.10 in the bylaw, but I understand your concern. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair O'Connor. Just so we can have some proper discussion and debate, I thought I'd get some business forward.
There are still people in the queue.
Yeah, but this isn't an opportunity for new questions and information. This is a motion on third reading. So in order for us to have discussion and debate, I thought I'd put the motion forward.
Okay, go ahead, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks. So Council gives third reading to Bylaw C-1260-187, being an amendment to the land use bylaw. Thanks.
Thank you for helping us clarify that. I appreciate it. And next in the queue is Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Deputy Chair O'Connor. For me, I didn't vote yes the last 2 times we voted, and I will continue to vote no. And the reasons for it is it's not necessarily for the landowner who's going to put up the garden suite. It's for the people who are coming in and buying their house. The property that might be the biggest property or biggest price tag of their lifetime. And then all of a sudden get these surprises that there is a new structure or the aesthetics of the neighborhood are all changing. Nothing that they had bargained for. I'm for secondary suites. I'm for garage suites. You know what you're buying when you get into that space. The structures don't change when you have secondary suites. You're living within the means of the structure that's already built. For me, I would rather see systems like they have in Edmonton. If you want to put 2 small homes on one lot, it's right in front of you. There it is. If parking isn't a concern or utilities aren't a concern in Councillor O'Connor's point of questions, you see it right in front of you. My concern is these properties that people are going to buy, and then all of a sudden there's going to be something new there that they didn't bargain for. If you have no trouble living within small confines, that's fine. But know that when you're going into it. And so for those reasons, I'm concerned about sightlines. I'm concerned about aesthetics up and above the issues of vehicles and increased residents.
Thank you, Councillor Bosch. Councillor Pullup.
Thanks, Chair O'Connor. I guess I'm confused here. I just want to ask administration, without changing this bylaw, could I not do a garden suite of some sort of type or a backyard suite of some sort of type in these areas already?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. Our existing land use bylaw allows for garage suites, which in fact, currently the way that the land use bylaw allows for a larger structure than what could be proposed. So currently under the land use bylaw, if someone is interested in having a suite in the back of their property, they're required to provide a garage component to the building, which then typically the suite would be on the second story, whereas this regulation allows for what you may call less intrusive structures because they're smaller and there would not be a garage component required.
So I appreciate you saying that, because I feel like a few of my colleagues are maybe concerned that this is going to change the outcome of areas when in fact this policy is already in place. A bylaw already exists to do exactly what we're looking at doing. This bylaw actually would take a lot of people, myself, if I wanted to age in place in a spot and I wanted to put a little 700 square foot ground level suite, I could do that with this. Otherwise, I got to put a garage and put this suite above it. Doesn't allow people to age in place, and what you've actually created is a lot taller structure going into people's backyards. So I'm fully in support of this motion. I think if we want to catch up to more mid-sized cities in this province, we have to realize people want to live differently now. They want to age in place in these places. We're not stopping them from doing this under the old bylaw. This actually protects these areas even more, in my opinion, than what's currently happening now. You still have to meet your parking requirements. You still have to meet your setbacks. You still have to meet your servicing requirements. You have to meet your safety code requirements. Everything still has to be checked off for you to do this. But what we're not doing is we're allowing people that want to live in place or to have that opportunity to do that on property to do it. To those people that are saying, oh, I'm worried about if I buy this property, what's going to happen? That's already could happen right now. What you're also doing now is stagnating a bunch of people that can't have this as an opportunity to move forward with. So I'd really urge our councillors that are thinking of defeating this to ask what your end goal with this is. If it's to stop development, then don't support it. If it's to allow new types of development that are actually have more stringent rules than what we previously had, then I would urge you to support this.
Before I go to Councillor Berg, I'll go to Mayor Clayton online.
Thanks, Chair O'Connor. Sorry, we were on the vote earlier, but I had us muted by accident. Regardless, I heard the full conversation on this on the last motion, on the previous item. In regards to this motion, Councillor Palat said it pretty much exactly how I was thinking it. I think Council needs to recognize that this opportunity has more restrictions than an existing opportunity through garage suites. When it's referenced in regards to two smaller houses on one lot, that you're okay with that, that's kind of what this is putting a secondary accommodation that's smaller than a garage suite and provides an opportunity for someone else to live on that property with restrictions around it that don't impede as much on the neighbor as an already approved opportunity in development. I think this is a great opportunity. There are significant restrictions on it for those who are concerned about it, and actually more restrictions than a process that's already approved. So I will be supporting the motion. Thanks.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. One of the things that I sit back and I play out different scenarios, and Councillor Thiessen had brought it up, where you could doze the house, build a big one in the front and a smaller one in the back. In mature neighborhoods around Calgary, I do see where they just simply subdivide the lot into two and you get two long houses put on it. I think that would probably make a better business sense of putting two titles instead of one. Also, a potential unintended consequence is that that house is no longer viable and it gets dozed, and now you've got a duplex or fourplex on it. So I think in some ways this may actually preserve the character of the neighborhood, where if there is a house in the front and the back, you're less inclined to doze that house in the front and put something new on it. So again, just some thoughts as we're having this debate that I thought I would share.
Okay. Councillor Bessie.
Great. Well, I'm going to encourage Council to, won't you please think of the grandchildren? And for me, where I get the most excited about this form of living and where I know of garage suites here, of secondary backyard suites here in Grande Prairie that are doing this above a garage, is with grandparents in the house. I know that I've got many friends in Calgary and Edmonton who have a garage suite and they've got grandparents living in the house. I know one couple where they're an elderly couple and they moved into one of these on their property so their kids could move into the main house. I really think that these are such a great option, not just for the traditional thing you see with secondary suites, but they're especially such a great option for multi-generational living, where you want to be close, but you don't want to be under the same roof, or you want to be close, but the old 1960s bungalow you have doesn't allow a good suite for you to build for mom and dad, or even better yet, mom and dad-in-law to move in with you. I think the issue with requiring these kinds of livings to be above a garage, and again, these can happen above a garage, we've already talked about how that's a bigger impact on neighbors. For me, I would much rather have my neighbors build a little tiny 700 square foot single story house than build a 2-story above a garage. I'm going to see that single story thing a lot less than I'm going to see that double story garage. I also think that if you want to move multi-generations in, requiring that suite goes above a garage so that the elderly folks that could live in here have to walk upstairs. That takes a whole lot of multi-generational living out of the equation. That means that if I'm thinking about building one of these on my property for me to retire on, well, all of a sudden I've lost 10 years in living in that because you're making me walk upstairs. So I don't think requiring a garage is good for multi-generational living. And again, requiring the garage is a bigger impact on the neighborhood. I also don't understand why we'd say, well, hey, we'd rather you subdivide. When I think about my home in Avondale, when I think about what could happen with the neighbors, I'd far rather them keep their regular bungalow and have a small little 700 square foot house in the backyard that I won't even see because of all the trees that are in my neighborhood. I'd far rather that happen than see them just doze their bungalow, bulldoze the entire lot, take down all the trees to make room to fit 2 houses in and have 2 houses on that lot. I'd way rather the small suite in the backyard on my neighbor's yard than a suite above a garage or a subdivided property. And so I just really don't get the arguments against this when we already allow suites to happen above garages. Allowing this has less neighborhood impact and it creates more opportunity for multi-generational living. So I hope council will pass this.
Just before I go on to the next speaker, I just want to make people clear on why I'm against it, is that most of these places, a garage suite has a lane and access to a lane. And these ones, they can be put on a property, so you're basically deadlocking that development at the back part of someone's lot, especially a small lot. If there was a lane, I don't have any issues. I think it's important that we have fire access, and I think it's important that if you want to intensify, I think this is a good option, but not without a lane. And so getting from the front to the back, and not enough parking at the front, I have a concern with that. I'll go to Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. Well, it's good to hear my colleagues, because now you're giving me points to ponder on. Is 700 the maximum
800
square footage? I'm just curious how big these can get. If it's 1,300 square feet or something like that.
No, it's 800.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Through the chair, I have 80% of principal dwelling or 75 meters squared, whichever is smaller.
Yeah, that's 800 square feet.
Okay. Could administration tell me what were in other municipalities, this is a hot topic, and what are some of the issues that, let's say in BC, residents are having that has caused a sour taste in residents' mouths in regards to bringing in garden suites? I'm not talking about garage suites or secondary suites, but in particular garden suites.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of any controversies or specific complaints about this type of development.
That's interesting. We have had residents call us and say that, so I'm just curious on the knowledge that we have based on examples.
Through the chair, I would also add that numerous comparative municipalities in Alberta do allow for garden suites. The information was presented at the various committee meetings and council meetings, but just going from a spreadsheet that I had Ms. Downing prepare, Red Deer, St. Albert, Edmonton, Calgary, Lethbridge, and Medicine Hat all allow garden suites as well as garage suites. They have different development regulations, but they do all allow them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair O'Connor. Yeah, I just Google searched quickly. It came up lots of tops of the list. Kelowna shooting themselves in the foot. These are things that are coming from the Peachland Phoenix and other stuff. People who can't sell their houses because they built the garden suite, and now it's created a higher property value that they can't sell on. So those are issues in them. I just want to address Councillor Palat's comments about you need a garage suite in the back, and now you're going to have a bigger garden suite in the back. According to our own proposed policy bylaw, these buildings can get as high as 25 feet tall without a garage underneath. So essentially, you don't need a lane. You don't even need a garage. You can build it as tall as your house in the backyard, and then it's done there. So I don't know why we're saying, well, if you don't do this, then they're going to have to build a garage in the back. That garage is A, going to require a lane or a side yard, and B, there's no stopping it, essentially. It can be 25 feet tall. So that's kind of a bit of a misinformation there, because you don't need the garage in order to build the structure so tall. The other part of it is I think of granny suites and grandchildren, just recently becoming a grandparent myself in the new year. I sometimes wonder about the grandparent with the walker or the wheelchair that you're trying to look after and take care of. You're probably just going to put them in your principal residence. You're not building a granny suite for them, because a lot of times they got to go over snow, they got to go over ice, depending on how developed your backyard is. I don't know. I just see that there's too many issues here. So when we have councillors around the table saying, well, you'll have to build a garage and then do this, and that's why we're going to do this. Well, that's not what our bylaw is actually saying. Our bylaw is saying you can build it as tall as if it did have a garage suite underneath, put it right in the backyard, and then impose that structure and its shadow and everything else upon the neighbors around it. So I just wanted to clarify the record, because you don't need to build a garage to make a super tall structure as a garden suite according to these proposed bylaws.
Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Chair O'Connor. Just a question for administration. To kind of Councillor Thiessen's point, I'm not saying that this couldn't be something that will have higher structures. Do I have an opportunity now in Grande Prairie to just build a 700 square foot ground level suite in my backyard?
Through the chair, no.
So I would have to build a garage and put a suite above it.
Through the chair, the bylaw requires a garage component, so theoretically it could be beside the garage. However, the proposals that we've seen to date are the suite's always above the garage.
Okay, so I could appreciate where Councillor Thiessen's going, that yes, there might be some more taller structures. Right now, though, we're not allowing people to just build a 650 square foot one-bedroom studio in the backyard for a family member that may want to age there without forcing them to build a garage. So our bylaws prescripting that. My other question for administration, just thinking of some older lots I've had in town, lots of worry about Highland Park, hillside areas. If I have a driveway that is beside my house and I can drive to a garage in the backyard, could I still be building a massive garage suite in Highland Park or Hillside or Swanhaven if I can drive by my house to get to my garage?
Through the chair, that's correct. Yes, you could.
So I appreciate the concerns on this. I just don't want us to get to where we're over-prescribing something that actually is going to be able to happen now. Yes, there's a risk with this for sure. I think we have to start realizing other communities are using this as a tool to A, densify the community, to create more tax base in the same sort of space, which would be great for us, and B, you're giving people more opportunities. The current bylaw we have right now, maybe some people would want to live with their kids. Personally, I think it would be great if I could live 30 steps from my kids with a door that I could shut, not in the same building. So that's a personal preference for people. We're basically saying in this way, the only preference is to live in your house with your children. So I'm having a hard time with that. It's either live in your house or walk upstairs to live in a garage suite, because the math isn't going to work to do it side by side. And so, again, I just hope we support a motion that most communities are working towards, because these work fantastic in most communities in the province. I've seen lots of them firsthand.
Yeah, I am going to have Councillor Bressley, and then I will be the last to speak, because I have allowed everyone else to speak. But we need to move on and come to closure on this. So Councillor Bressley, and then Mayor Clayton.
Well, actually, I'm just making sure that you know that you're not the last to speak. I'll close on my motion.
Oh, that's okay. I get it. Councillor Bressie.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, but I might call a point of privilege to speak again if the chair says things that are incorrect about this bylaw again. And that is, I heard from the chair that we shouldn't allow this because it's not requiring fire access. I do want to highlight to the chair that in this bylaw, there is a section that specifically says that where this happens, there must be a path at least 0.9 meters wide and 2 meters high, ensuring the unobstructed path of travel for firefighters for their vehicles to the backyard suite. So there is a provision in this bylaw to make sure that fire can access these suites. And my understanding is the fire department has been circulated on this and has provided comment to make sure it can get there. I'd also highlight that there's nothing in our current bylaw that says that a garage suite has to be attached to a lane. There are wide properties in these older neighborhoods we're concerned about where you can fit a garage next to a house and do one of these secondary suites. So for me, I think it's important that when we're looking at these, that we're talking about what this actually says, not our fears about what it might be. And again, this provides opportunities for people to create something that is less disruptive than what is allowed right now. Right now, you have to build a garage. That just is a bigger building. And I don't understand why we're upset about giving people options to be less disruptive to their neighbors than they are right now. And I don't understand why we're upset about giving people options to do whatever they want to do with their property. Ideas of, hey, this will price your home out of the market. I should have the right to do that. It's my property. Ideas of, hey, this could cut up your backyard. I should have the right to do that. It's my property. The only thing I feel we should be considering here is this too disruptive to your neighbors? And again, this creates opportunities to do what you want to do with less disruption to your neighbors than you have to create with the existing bylaw. So I hope that we'll support this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to point out that I do not have a concern with the fire on the back as long as you can get there. And that is 0.9 feet, which is 35.11 inches, and 145 feet for the 45 meters. I don't know of a lot that's 145 feet long. However, and it says on item 46.9, a lot with a single detached dwelling shall only be permitted to have one of the following: A, a backyard suite; B, a secondary suite, or a home business. So if you built the granny suite, you couldn't have a secondary suite in the main house. So I think that's an important factor, and I would just caution people to let's put some thought around this and consider what happens to the parking. So if that little house is there and you've got to allow one parking spot on the property, and you do have a driveway going on through to the back, you are not allowed to do tandem parking. So somewhere you're going to have to pull aside and not have that driveway blocked off. And that's my only concern. So I will let Mayor Clayton to close.
Thanks, Chair O'Connor. Appreciate Councillor Bressie's comments and echoing his intent. There are many items that have been addressed today that are concerns of people speculating. There's been months and months of consultation, work put in this, opportunity for council to have feedback. This policy is going to be the envy of other communities. We've made this policy with all the input that council has wanted. It's a better policy than many municipalities that already have this. And you're referencing things that already exist in other situations in our communities. We have smaller lots that have parking stalls that may be not as accessible as emergency services like, but we build standards around creating a safe community. There's nothing in this amendment of this policy, or rather in this policy as presented, that creates an unsafe community. There's nothing in this that puts us at risk of some of the items that were brought up today. This policy is actually a best case scenario compared to garage suites. I fully encourage my council to support this because it's something that we need in regards to development. As Councillor Palat said earlier, if you don't support development, vote against this. If you support development and a progressive community with policies that meet our needs, please vote in favor. Thank you.
I will call a question. I don't think that's a fair comment to say we're not opposed to development. But anyway, call a question.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
Councillor Blackmore, 100% in favor.
Bressie in favor.
Okay, that carried 5-6 to 2. Now, with that, we will now love the debate. As we have no other, is there any other business? As there is no other business, I'd like to move, council member reports. So, who do we start with? Council, I'll do online. Mayor Clayton.
I just wanted to say, thanks so much, Cheryl Connor. I just wanted to say that we're going to lose service here. So myself and Councillor Blackmore will update you at our next meeting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Toole. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, he's still online. He can still do his council report. Are you there, Councillor O'Toole? Okay, we're going to skip on. Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Chair O'Connor. And also, just heading to round table, I know that debate got passionate, and I love having colleagues that we can have passionate debate, and I know we're still all colleagues at the end of this. So I do want to thank Council for being such good colleagues to work with. I know a few of my highlights were the Voice of the Region event, where the Chamber gets all three levels of elected officials together to chat. It was great seeing Mayor Clayton, along with her colleagues, the Reeves of the MD in the county, and our MLA and our MP all up front asking questions. So thank you to the Chamber for organizing that. Thank you to all those who asked them questions. I know another highlight for me was getting to take in the Northern Spirit Light Show. It's now open. It's awesome. The community should get out there at Evergreen Park. And finally, I got to spend a few days away at the Law of Policing Conference in Burnaby. So talking about various issues in police law. It was great getting to talk to people who are doing policing across the country and get to pick their brains, get to tell them a little bit about what we're doing here. And it was also great to see Chief Lacusta and our City Solicitor Freeman on a panel talking about how our transition was going. And I appreciate getting to watch them share some of their wisdom. And we had a good reception of the professionals doing this across the country, saying that we're on the right course. So it was great to be able to do that check-in with other colleagues.
Okay, Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Chair O'Connor. First, I'll start with the Indigenous Veterans Day on November 8th. I was happy to participate there at the Gardens. And then Remembrance Day ceremonies at Bonnet Center. I always pick inside, not outside. I have other colleagues that pick outside. But that is always a very heartwarming event to go to as well. I attended a ribbon cutting at Latitude 55 and Your Voice, Your Region, or Your Region, Your Voice. I attended the Customer Appreciation Dinner for ABC Recycling, so congratulations to them. And attended the RMA Fall Conference, as well as Friday night, I attended Vegas Night in our city center. And then finally Saturday, the Festival of Trees. So that is just opening up overall for the next 10 days or so. So make sure to get out there and check out the trees and all the other lovely centerpieces that are made and donate to our hospital foundation. Thank you.
And Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Chair O'Connor. Go through some of my highlights. It started off with the Breakfast with the Guys event, and we had Brady Levo play, an ex-NHL player that come and told his story. Very well told story about how he joked about he would never be on East Hastings and then lived quite a long time on East Hastings before he turned around his story. Now he's working with lots of professional athletes in a different capacity. So it was great to hear his story and just the challenges he went through to get back to the path of recovery. Was happy to attend several Remembrance Days events. I have to say the comp, I think, always does a great job of their event, and was happy to attend that, as well as the Cenotaph, the outdoor event, as Councillor Bosch has mentioned, I'm one of the outdoor people apparently. Want to thank Darren Foley. He had a busy day with his work on Remembrance Day at the comp, and then also the Ryan Wagner Memorial out at St. Mary's Catholic School, the winner this year. Darren's a big part of both of those events, and so I want to thank him for his work in the community. We had 3 days of budget around these table, and I want to thank our colleagues for getting along and all the work our administration did on that. Had the opportunity to go to the Festival of Trees this weekend. Again, looked like a sold-out event. Latitude 5 ribbon cutting. We did a Métis local flag raising during budget as well. Got to go to your chamber, your voice, your region, your voice, which was very well received, and it was great to hear our political leaders get up there and have some good conversation about our area, and just realizing I don't think people realize till they go to events like that just how well we do collaborate as a region with 3 levels of government, with local, and by 3 levels of government I mean county, city, MD, not the other way, but I think the local region, our governments do a really good job with that, although we did have the county, city, MD, as well as Chris Workington and Olin Dix, so we had all levels of government. And lastly, it was nice to have another update on our Mascot Medical Center. Again, they continue to move along. The latest renderings are absolutely beautiful. They're getting farther along with their contracts. So looking forward to hopeful future announcements where we're going to see a shovel get in the ground sooner than later. That's my report. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Speaking to the collaboration, I attended the RMA with Councillor Bosch and Mayor Clayton. And RMA is for our county and MD regional partners. And so we attend a small contingency. And what we're there for is learning the concerns and the challenges that they have. And we can help them in their advocacy and understand some of their challenges that they're having. But also what they're advocating for. And Reeve Marshall got up to speak at one point advocating for tourism in the region and invited the southern MLAs from Alberta that may not necessarily be familiar with our area up to see the tourism potential of the Peace Country. So there was that. I attended 2 Remembrance Day ceremonies, the Indigenous Veterans Day ceremony at the Veterans Memorial Gardens, and I'm one of those outdoor guys that always goes outdoors, and my thinking is if these soldiers could stay outside for winter after winter, I surely can do about an hour and a half. So that's how I always attend outdoors, and yeah, the Cenotaph is great. We had Grande Prairie Public Library. That was my first meeting with that group, and they're doing some technological updating. But also, I think probably the biggest thing is for Grande Prairie Regional Tourism. Just read the release. We're pleased to share an exciting update from Grande Prairie Regional Tourism Association. Ms. Jasmine Grievet will be joining us as our new Executive Director effective January 6, 2025. And she brings experience in nonprofit management and her commitment to tourism development. Her background in stakeholder engagement and funding support programs aligns well with our goals, and we're confident in her leadership that it will drive our initiatives forward in meaningful ways. So congratulations, Jasmine, and we're happy to have you on board at Grande Prairie Regional Tourism. And I'll just end it there because I've attended a number of the things that have already been mentioned as well.
And Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Your Worship O'Connor. One of the cool things about budget is typically all of us council gets together and we end up going to a whole bunch of events together. So many of these events have already been spoken of, but I do want to highlight a couple things. So breakfast with the guys, Councillor Platt already touched base on that. I just wanted to send out a big thank you to Lisa Watson and her crew with the Odyssey House. This is really about not just telling stories to boys, but it's to ensure that we're conscious with how we use our language and what type of society that we're looking to promote and to live in. So, it started out with locker room talk. This is a great story about how one can get involved into the dark side of life and recover. So there's always still hope. There was hope for me in the room because there's many kids from St. Joe's High School football team, Charles Spencer, as well as the Wolves who are in there. So these are kids that are getting the right messages, and hopefully will take the right step forward in their lives. And a big shout out to our Grande Prairie Fire Department, because they put in a lot of work to organize this event, including the nail biting task of MC. Sometimes can be hard, but good job to all of our firefighters who participated in that, as well as our police and RCMP. Also to the 3D presentation of the Ryan Wagner Award. A lot of people may not know this, but Ryan Wagner was kind of one of the first recipients of the 3D award. He, in spite of his medical issues, still managed to get through a pretty solid life and made the most out of every day that he had. So when we get to talk to the kids and we share some of these stories and this award, it can be quite jarring, a little bit heartbreaking. There's always a lot of tears there. But, the kids at the St. Mary's Catholic School in Beaver Lodge were such great hosts to us. I think we even got a prayer blessing at the end with their hands, and we got a song at the beginning, and they were so happy to win that award and to be able to hang that banner up for being the top fundraising school. So way to go, Beaver Lodge St. Mary's Catholic School, as the winner of the Ryan Wagner Memorial Award for the 3D Children's Hockey Charity. By the way, since it started almost 20 years ago, has raised over $2 million for sick kids throughout the region and helping to take care of their medical expenses. I also took part in many Remembrance Day ceremonies. I also did the indoor this year, not because, like Councillor Boss, I refused to do the outdoor. I switch on and off, but it was nice to be there indoor this year. And then we had Métis Week this week. Usually that rolls in line with budget. I think we planned that on purpose. So we're all here, which is great to be there for the flag raising. After budget, I actually went to the Rupert's Land Institute just for an open house that I was invited to, and just to learn more about what they do there. So the Rupert's Land Institute, if you're interested, you're a Métis or First Nations person, they help with education, training, grants, and they even have an education grant available till December 2nd if people are looking to get into the trades or even into school. They help Métis kids get that, as well as the training and the connections that they need. It was there that I got a beautiful print that I saw. I said, oh, that's a nice print. And I got a bit of a story behind the print. It's actually a mural that's stationed at the original Rupert's Land Institute, closer to Edmonton here. And they had little box points of different people who had suffered from the residential school. So it tells a story. So when I asked about it, they said, you can have a print. And so I was like, oh, this is great. And they said, actually, this was done when the delegation went to see the Pope. So this was done in their honor. And you might know Angie Creer, who was here helping us raise the Métis flag earlier in the day, or the day before. And I said, yeah. She's like, she's down there in the second box. So I was touched to be able to just, here's a print, do what you want with it, that I ran to Grant Berg Gallery. And I said, Grant, we need us to frame this thing. So Grant and I went 50-50 on it. We're going to donate it to the city. We're not sure where, maybe city council chambers, or, well, ask Shane, our CAO, what's best to do with it. But just as a gift to the city on behalf of Métis Week. So I was touched, and Grant and I wanted to return the favor back. So that's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last but not least, I went to Calgary with the mayor, and we opened up the Northwest Alberta launch, and it was a tremendous event to watch. The presentation that were put there for all the businesses. We met at the Oilmen's Club, and it was a very well received event, and a lot of positive energy was built in that room. Then I was able to fly from there to Edmonton and attend the Economic Development Ministers dinner, where we had different ministers coming through and presenting us with all the different grant opportunities. And I think we had 7 different ministers come by, or their departments come by and share the grants. Went to Remembrance Day celebrations at Jubilee Park. and laid a wreath with my two wing people, Councillor Blackmore and Councillor Berg, and went to the composite Remembrance Day ceremony. That was such a cool event. They had all of the teachers who had family, who had lost family in the war, and that was so personal and so touching. I was really appreciated how that went. Then I went to the Ryan Wagner Memorial, and those young kids, I felt that blessing. That was, whew. So budget deliberation, I have to say a compliment to our staff for doing an excellent job at preparing the budget deliberations so that we didn't end up strangling each other at the end of the week. We could look each other in the eye and say, I think we did a great job at doing that, but kudos go to CEO Burke and the staff. Excellent job. Thank you. And went to your region, your voice. And our mayor always handled herself well and represents this city in this region. She didn't shy away from any questions, and she just has an ability that we don't realize how important the role that she plays in representing us. And even when we were at in Ottawa for the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, she was able to get us to meet a couple of ministers to be able to discuss initiatives that would help Grande Prairie move forward. So with that, I want to say thank you, councillors. We can go for a wobbly pop after and still be friends, even though we might not agree on every issue. So thank you, and have a good evening. Thank you.